Day 96, 1 Kings 16-19. Elijah on Mount Carmel. 16. Baasha king of Israel, Elah king of Israel, Jimri king of Israel, Omri king of Israel. Ahab becomes king of Israel. 17. Elijah announces a great drought. Elijah fed by a raven. Elijah and the widow at Zarephath. 18. Elijah and Obadiah. Elijah on Mount Carmel. 19. Elijah flees to Horeb. The call of Elisha. Point ponder. In the book of James, chapter 5, 17-18, Elijah is held up as a model of prayer. He was not super saint, but rather a man subject to like passions as we are. He got tired, discouraged, and anxious on occasion, but his first reaction was take it to God in prayer.
Chapter 16. The word of the Lord came to Jehu the son of Hanani against Baasha, saying, Because I exalted you out of the dust, and made you prince over my people Israel, and you have walked in the way of Jeroboam, and have made my people Israel to sin, to provoke me to anger with their sins, behold, I will utterly sweep away Baasha and his house, and I will make your house like the house of Jeroboam the son of Nebat. Him who dies of Baasha in the city shall the dogs eat, and him who dies of his in the field shall the birds of the sky eat. Now the rest of the acts of Baasha, and what he did, and his might, aren't they written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? Baasha slept with his fathers, and he was buried in Tirzah, and Elah his son reigned in his place. Moreover, by the prophet Jehu the son of Hanani came the word of the Lord against Baasha and against his house, both because of all the evil that he did in the sight of the Lord, to provoke him to anger with the work of his hands, in being like the house of Jeroboam, and because he struck him. In the 26th year of Asa king of Judah began Elah the son of Baasha to reign over Israel in Tirzah, and he reigned 2 years. His servant Zimri, captain of half his chariots, conspired against him. Now he was in Tirzah drinking himself drunk in the house of Arsa, who was over the household in Tirzah. And Zimri went in and struck him, and killed him, in the 27th year of Asa king of Judah, and reigned in his place. It happened, when he began to reign, as soon as he sat on his throne, that he struck all the house of Baasha. He didn't leave him a single man-child, neither of his relatives nor of his friends. Thus Zimri did destroy all the house of Baasha, according to the word of the Lord, which he spoke against Baasha by Jehu the prophet, for all the sins of Baasha, and the sins of Elah his son which they sinned, and with which they made Israel to sin, to provoke the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger with their vanities. Now the rest of the acts of Elah and all that he did, aren't they written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? In the 27th year of Asa king of Judah did Zimri reign 7 days in Tirzah. Now the people were encamped against Gibbethon, which belonged to the Philistines. The people who were encamped heard say, Zimri has conspired, and has also struck the king. Therefore all Israel made Omri the captain of the host king over Israel that day in the camp. Omri went up from Gibbethon, and all Israel with him, and they besieged Tirzah. It happened, when Zimri saw that the city was taken, that he went into the castle of the king's house, and burnt the king's house over him with fire, and died, for his sins which he sinned in doing that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, in walking in the way of Jeroboam, and in his sin which he did, to make Israel to sin. Now the rest of the acts of Zimri, and his treason that he did, aren't they written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? Then were the people of Israel divided into 2 parts. Half of the people followed Tibni the son of Ginath, to make him king, and half followed Omri. But the people who followed Omri prevailed against the people who followed Tibni the son of Ginath, so Tibni died and Omri reigned. In the 31st year of Asa king of Judah, Omri began to reign over Israel, and he reigned 12 years. 6 years he reigned in Tisra. He bought the hill Samaria of Shemer for 2 talents of silver, and he built on the hill, and called the name of the city which he built after the name of Shemer the owner of the hill, Samaria. Omri did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, and dealt wickedly above all who were before him. For he walked in all the way of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, and in his sins with which he made Israel to sin, to provoke the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger with their vanities. Now the rest of the acts of Omri which he did, and his might that he showed, aren't they written in the books of the chronicles of the kings of Israel? So Omri slept with his fathers, and was buried in Samaria, and Ahab his son reigned in his place. In the 38th year of Asa king of Judah, Ahab the son of Omri began to reign over Israel, and Ahab the son of Omri reigned over Israel in Samaria 22 years. Ahab the son of Omri did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord above all that were before him. It happened, as if it had been a light thing for him to walk in the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, that he took his wife, Jezebel the daughter of Ethbaal king of the Sidonians, and went and served Baal and worshipped him. He reared up an altar for Baal in the house of Baal which he had built in Samaria. Ahab made the Asherah, and Ahab did yet more to provoke the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger than all the kings of Israel who were before him. In his days did Hiel the Bethelite build Jericho. He laid the foundation of it with the loss of Abiram his firstborn, and set up the gates of it with the loss of his youngest son Segub, according to the word of the Lord, which he spoke by Joshua the son of Nun. Chapter 17. Elijah the Tishbite, who was of the foreigners of Gilead, said to Ahab, As the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, before whom I stand, there shall not be dew nor rain these years, but according to my word. The word of the Lord came to him, saying, Go from here and turn eastward, and hide yourself by the brook Cherith that is before the Jordan. It will be that you shall drink of the brook, and I have commanded the ravens to feed you there. So he went and did according to the word of the Lord, for he went and lived by the brook Cherith that is before the Jordan. The ravens brought him bread and flesh in the morning, and bread and flesh in the evening, and he drank of the brook. It happened after a while that the brook dried up, because there was no rain in the land. The word of the Lord came to him, saying, Arise, go to Zarephath, which belongs to Sidon, and dwell there. Behold, I have commanded a widow there to sustain you. So he arose and went to Zarephath, and when he came to the gate of the city, a widow was there gathering sticks, and he called to her and said, Please get me a little water in a vessel that I may drink. As she was going to get it, he called to her and said, Please also bring me a morsel of bread in your hand. She said, As the Lord your God lives, I don't have a cake, but a handful of meal in the jar, and a little oil in the jar, and I am gathering 2 sticks, that I may go in and bake it for my son and I, that we may eat it and die. Elijah said to her, Don't be afraid. Go and do as you have said. But make me first a little cake and bring it to me, and afterward make one for you and your son. For thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, The jar of meal shall not empty, neither shall the jar of oil fail, until the day that the Lord sends rain on the earth. She went and did according to the saying of Elijah, and she and he and her house ate many days. The jar of meal didn't empty, neither did the jar of oil fail, according to the word of the Lord which he spoke by Elijah. It happened after these things that the son of the woman, the owner of the house, fell sick, and his sickness was severe, that there was no breath left in him. She said to Elijah, What have I to do with you, you man of God? You have come to me to bring my sin to memory and to kill my son. He said to her, Give me your son. He took him out of her bosom and carried him up into the chamber where he lived, and laid him on his own bed. He cried to the Lord and said, O Lord my God, have you also brought evil on the widow with whom I sojourn by killing her son? He stretched himself on the child 3 times and cried to the Lord, and said, O Lord my God, please let this child's soul come into him again. The Lord listened to the voice of Elijah, and the soul of the child came into him again, and he revived. Elijah took the child, and brought him down out of the chamber into the house, and delivered him to his mother. And Elijah said, Behold, your son lives." The woman said to Elijah, "Now I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord in your mouth is truth." Chapter 18. It happened after many days that the word of the Lord came to Elijah in the 3rd year, saying, "Go, show yourself to Ahab, and I will send rain on the earth." Elijah went to show himself to Ahab. The famine was severe in Samaria. Ahab called Obadiah, who was over the household. Now Obadiah feared the Lord greatly, for it was when Jezebel cut off the prophets of the Lord that Obadiah took 100 prophets and hid them by 50s in a cave and fed them with bread and water. Ahab said to Obadiah, "Go through the land to all the springs of water and to all the brooks. Perhaps we may find grass and save the horses and the mules alive, that we not lose all the animals." So they divided the land between them to pass through it. Ahab went one way by himself, and Obadiah went another way by himself. As Obadiah was in the way, Elijah met him, and he knew him and fell on his face and said, "Is it you, my lord Elijah?" He answered him, "It is I. Go, tell your lord, behold, Elijah is here." He said, "Wherein have I sinned that you would deliver your servant into the hand of Ahab to kill me? As the Lord your God lives, there is no nation or kingdom where my Lord has not sent to seek you, and when they said, 'He is not here,' he took an oath of the kingdom and nation that they didn't find you. Now you say, 'Go tell your Lord, behold, Elijah is here.' It will happen, as soon as I have gone from you, that the Spirit of the Lord will carry you I don't know where, and so when I come and tell Ahab, and he can't find you, he will kill me. But I your servant fear the Lord from my youth. Wasn't it told my Lord what I did when Jezebel killed the prophets of the Lord? How I hid 100 men of the Lord's prophets by 50s in a cave, and fed them with bread and water. Now you say, 'Go tell your Lord, behold, Elijah is here,' and he will kill me." Elijah said, "As the Lord of armies lives, before whom I stand, I will surely show myself to him today." So Obadiah went to meet Ahab and told him, and Ahab went to meet Elijah. It happened, when Ahab saw Elijah, that Ahab said to him, "Is that you, you troubler of Israel?" He answered, "I have not troubled Israel, but you, and your father's house, and that you have forsaken the commandments of the Lord, and you have followed the Baals. Now therefore send and gather to me all Israel to Mount Carmel, and the 450 prophets of Baal, and the 400 prophets of Asherah who eat at Jezebel's table." So Ahab sent to all the children of Israel, and gathered the prophets together to Mount Carmel. Elijah came near to all the people and said, "How long will you waver between the two sides? If the Lord is God, follow him, but if Baal, then follow him." The people didn't answer him a word. Then Elijah said to the people, "I, even I only, am left of the prophets of the Lord, but Baal's prophets are 450 men. Let them therefore give us 2 bulls, and let them choose 1 bull for themselves, and cut it in pieces, and lay it on the wood, and put no fire under it, and I will kill the other bull and lay it on the wood, and put no fire under it. You call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord, and the God who answers by fire, let him be God." All the people answered, "It is well said." Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, "Choose 1 bull for yourselves and dress it first, for you are many, and call on the name of your God, but put no fire under it." They took the bull which was given them, and they dressed it, and called on the name of Baal from morning even until noon, saying, "O Baal, hear us." But there was no voice, nor any who answered. They leapt about the altar which they had made. It happened at noon that Elijah mocked them and said, "Cry aloud, for he is a god. Either he's thinking, or he's missing, or he's gone on a journey, or perhaps he sleeps and must be awakened." They cried aloud and cut themselves after their manner with knives and lances, until the blood gushed out on them. It was so, when midday was past, that they prophesied until the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice, but there was neither voice, nor any to answer, nor any who regarded. Elijah said to all the people, "Come near to me." and all the people came near to him. He repaired the altar of the Lord that was thrown down. Elijah took 12 stones, according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, to whom the word of the Lord came, saying, Israel shall be your name. With the stones he built an altar in the name of the Lord, and he made a trench about the altar, as great as would contain 2 measures of seed. He put the wood in order, and cut the bull in pieces, and laid it on the wood. He said, Fill 4 jars with water, and pour it on the burnt offering and on the wood. He said, Do it a second time, and they did it a second time. He said, Do it a third time, and they did it a third time. The water ran about the altar, and filled the trench also with water. It happened, at the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice, that Elijah the prophet came near and said, O Lord, God of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Israel, let it be known this day that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant, and that I have done all these things at your word. Hear me, O Lord, hear me, that this people may know that you, Lord, are God, and that you have turned their hearts back to you again. Then the fire of the Lord fell, and consumed the burnt offering, and the wood, and the stones, and the dust, and licked up the water that was in the trench. When all the people saw it, they fell on their faces, and they said, The Lord, He is God. The Lord, He is God. And Elijah said to them, Take the prophets of Baal. Don't let one of them escape. They took them, and Elijah brought them down to the brook Kishon and killed them there. Elijah said to Ahab, Go up, eat and drink, for I hear the sound of an abundance of rain. So Ahab went up to eat and drink. Elijah went up to the top of Carmel, and he bowed himself down on the earth, and put his face between his knees. He said to his servant, Go now and look toward the sea. He went up and looked, and said, There is nothing. He said, Go again 7 times. It happened at the 7th time that he said, Look, a small cloud, like a man's hand, is rising out of the sea. Elijah said, Go, tell Ahab, Make your chariot ready and get down from here, that the rain not stop you. It happened in a little while that the sky grew black with clouds and wind, and there was a great rain. Ahab rode and went to Jezreel, and the hand of the Lord was on Elijah, and he wrapped up his loins and ran before Ahab to the entrance of Jezreel. Chapter 19. Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and how he had slain all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah, saying, So let the gods do so to me, and more also, if I don't make your life as the life of one of them by tomorrow at this time. When he heard that, he arose and ran for his life, and came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, and came and sat down under a juniper tree. And he requested for himself that he might die, and said, It is enough now, Lord. Take my life away, for I am not better than my fathers. He laid down and slept under a juniper tree. And behold, an angel touched him and said to him, Arise and eat. He looked, and there was at his head a cake baked on the coals, and a jar of water. He ate and drank and laid down again. The angel of the Lord came again the 2nd time and touched him and said, Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for you. He arose and ate and drank, and went in the strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the mount of God. He came there to a cave and lodged there. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him, and he said to him, What are you doing here, Elijah? He said, I have been very jealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and slain your prophets with the sword, and I, even I only, am left, and they seek my life to take it away. He said, Go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord. Behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind tore the mountains, and broke in pieces the rocks before the Lord, but the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire a still small voice. It was so, when Elijah heard it, that he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood in the entrance of the cave. Behold, there came a voice to him and said, What are you doing here, Elijah? He said, I have been very jealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and slain your prophets with the sword. And I, even I only, am left, and they seek my life to take it away. The Lord said to him, Go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus, and when you come, you shall anoint Hazael to be king over Syria. And Jehu the son of Nimshi shall you anoint to be king over Israel. And Elisha the son of Shaphat of Abel-Meholah shall you anoint to be prophet in your place. It shall happen that he who escapes from the sword of Hazael shall Jehu kill, and he who escapes from the sword of Jehu shall Elisha kill. Yet I will leave me 7,000 in Israel, all the knees which have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth which has not kissed him. So he departed from there, and found Elisha the son of Shaphat, who was plowing, with 12 yoke of oxen before him, and he with the 12th. And Elijah passed over to him, and cast his mantle on him. He left the oxen and ran after Elijah and said, Let me, I pray you, kiss my father and my mother, and then I will follow you. He said to him, Go back again, for what have I done to you? He returned from following him, and took the yoke of oxen, and killed them, and boiled their flesh with the instruments of the oxen, and gave to the people, and they ate. Then he arose, and went after Elijah, and ministered to him.